There exists a particular burden carried by certain women that few dare to name. They walk through the world with eyes that pierce through carefully constructed facades, seeing the trembling fear behind confident smiles, the desperate hunger beneath polished success, the profound loneliness masked by constant chatter. These women possess what Carl Jung called the developed intuitive function, a psychological gift that reveals the authentic self hiding beneath every social performance. Yet they rarely speak of what they see. They remain silent, not from fear or judgment, but from a deeper understanding that most people are not ready to encounter their own truth reflected back to them. If you have ever felt like a living lie detector, sensing the discord between what people project and who they actually are, if conversations leave you exhausted not from what was said but from what was carefully avoided, if you find yourself surrounded by performances while craving authentic encounter, then what you are about to discover will illuminate why your silence has become your sanctuary. This is not about superiority or condemnation. This is about the psychological reality of existing with perceptual abilities that most individuals spend their entire lives unconsciously avoiding. Jung understood that the development of insight comes at a price. The more clearly you see, the more isolated you become from those still comfortable in their illusions. What follows is an exploration of why some women develop this penetrating sight, how it shapes their experience of human connection, and why their silence often speaks louder than any words ever could. By the end, you will understand that your ability to see through masks is not a curse to be hidden, but a rare form of consciousness that demands both courage and compassion. The capacity to see through social masks develops not as an intellectual skill, but as a survival mechanism. Jung identified this process through his work with individuals who had experienced profound psychological pressure, those forced to navigate environments where authenticity was punished and performance was rewarded. For many women, this pressure begins early. You learn to read the emotional temperature of every room before you understood why such vigilance was necessary. You develop the ability to sense when someone's words contradicted their energy, when smiles carried aggression, when kindness concealed manipulation. This hypervigilance emerges from what Jung called the inferior function, the least developed aspect of personality that often carries our deepest wisdom. When external circumstances force rapid psychological adaptation, certain individuals develop compensatory abilities that allow them to survive in environments where others remain oblivious to underlying dynamics. You became skilled at reading micro-expressions, energy shifts, the subtle incongruence between intention and presentation, because your psyche recognized that survival depended on accurate perception rather than naive trust. The child who grows up in a household where emotional volatility is disguised as normalcy learns to detect storms before they break. The adolescent navigating social hierarchies where cruelty masquerades as popularity develops internal radar for authentic versus performed connection. The young woman entering relationships where love is confused with possession learns to distinguish between genuine care and emotional vampirism. Each experience adds layers to your perceptual abilities until you can no longer unsee what others work desperately to ignore. Jung spoke of individuation as the process of becoming conscious, of separating your authentic self from the roles society assigns you. But for women who see through masks, individuation involves an additional challenge. You must learn to live with knowledge that others find threatening. You must develop the psychological strength to witness human self-deception without becoming cynical, to hold space for people's potential while accepting their current reality, to offer truth when requested while respecting their right to remain unconscious. This creates what Jung identified as the transcendent function, the ability to hold opposing truths in tension without collapsing into either extreme. You see both the mask and the person wearing it. You understand both their fear and their courage, their performance, and their authentic nature. This simultaneous awareness allows you to respond to people's deeper truth rather than their surface presentation. But it also creates a profound sense of aloneness because few others operate from this level of perception. The silence that characterizes women who see through masks emerges from multiple psychological sources. There is the silence of protection, recognizing that confronting someone's illusions before they are ready often triggers defensiveness rather than awareness. There is the silence of compassion, understanding that many people's masks represent their best current attempt at surviving circumstances they feel powerless to change. There is the silence of wisdom, knowing that truth shared prematurely can harm rather than heal. Jung understood that the psyche has its own timeline for integration. Forced revelation, even when motivated by genuine care, often strengthens resistance rather than promoting growth. The woman who sees clearly learns to offer space rather than insight, presence rather than analysis. She becomes a witness rather than a teacher, allowing others to discover their own truth when their psyche is ready to receive it. This restraint requires enormous psychological maturity. When you see someone destroying themselves through self-deception, when you witness the pain they create through unconscious patterns, when you recognize solutions they cannot yet perceive, the impulse to intervene can be overwhelming, but intervention without invitation often becomes invasion, and invasion typically strengthens the very defenses it seeks to dissolve. The developed woman learns to trust the wisdom of allowing others their journey, even when that journey includes detours through illusion and pain. She understands that consciousness cannot be gifted, only chosen. Her silence becomes an act of respect for each person's autonomous path towards self-awareness, even when she can see more direct routes they are not yet ready to take. There is also the silence of self-preservation. Speaking your perceptions in a world that prefers comfortable lies often results in social punishment. You learn quickly that people who ask for honesty frequently mean they want validation, not truth. Those who claim to value authenticity often retreat when faced with genuine transparency. Relationships built on shared illusions cannot survive the introduction of clarity without both parties choosing conscious evolution. The woman who sees through masks discovers that her perceptions, while accurate, are not always welcome. She may be labeled as negative, judgmental, or overly analytical by those who mistake her insight for criticism. She learns that truth-telling is a risky endeavor, one that often costs her the very connections she sought to deepen through honesty. This social feedback creates a protective silence, not the silence of suppression, but the silence of discernment. She learns to offer her perceptions only when specifically requested, to share her insights only in relationships that have demonstrated capacity for growth, to speak her truth only in contexts that honor rather than punish awareness. Jung identified projection as one of the primary ways the unconscious avoids confronting its own material. We see in others what we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. The woman who perceives clearly becomes an involuntary screen for others' projections. They see in her judgment what is actually their own self-criticism. They experience her clarity as coldness, her boundaries as rejection, her authenticity as superiority. This projection dynamic creates another layer of necessary silence. When someone is actively projecting their disowned material onto you, explaining the reality of the situation often intensifies their need to maintain the projection. They cannot yet own what they are placing upon you because acknowledging it would require facing aspects of themselves they are not prepared to meet. The skilled woman learns to neither absorb these projections as truth nor react defensively to their inaccuracy. She develops what Jung called the transcendent attitude, a psychological stance that allows projections to pass through her awareness without attachment. She sees the projection for what it is, a communication about the projector's internal state rather than an accurate assessment of her character. This requires profound psychological grounding. You must know yourself clearly enough to distinguish between valid feedback and projected material. You must trust your inner knowing more than external opinions, while remaining open to genuine reflection when it appears. You must maintain your center, while others use you as a repository for their unexamined emotions. The silence that emerges from this understanding is not withdrawal, but presence. You remain available for authentic connection, while declining participation in unconscious dynamics. You offer yourself as you are while refusing to become who others need you to be, to maintain their illusions. You speak when speaking serves consciousness, and remain silent when silence preserves the space for eventual awareness. Women who develop this perceptual clarity often experience what Jung described as the dark night of the soul, a period of profound disillusionment with surface-level human interaction. When you can see through most social performances, when casual conversation reveals the depths of self-deception most people carry, when authentic encounter becomes increasingly rare, a particular loneliness emerges that cannot be solved through conventional means. This is not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of being conscious in an unconscious world. You are surrounded by people yet feel profoundly unseen, because the part of you that sees clearly rarely finds matching perception in others. You long for conversation that goes beneath the mask, for connection that honors both darkness and light, for relationship that doesn't require the exhausting performance of not knowing what you clearly perceive. Jung understood this loneliness as an inevitable stage in the individuation process. As you separate from collective unconsciousness, as you develop your own relationship with truth rather than accepting inherited beliefs, you necessarily create distance from those still embedded in groupthink. This separation can feel like exile, but it is actually liberation from the psychological imprisonment of needing others' approval to know your own reality. The woman navigating this stage often questions whether her perceptions are accurate or whether she has become cynical, judgmental, or overly analytical. She may wonder if her inability to enjoy surface-level interaction indicates a flaw in her character rather than a development in her consciousness. She might attempt to force herself back into conventional social patterns, only to find that she can no longer sustain the energy required for such performance. This questioning period is natural and necessary. It represents the psyche's attempt to integrate higher perceptual abilities without losing heart connection. The challenge is learning to see clearly while maintaining compassion, to recognize masks while loving the person wearing them, to honor truth while respecting others' right to their current level of awareness. Jung spoke of this integration as the development of the wise woman archetype, the feminine principle that sees with both eyes and heart, that knows when to speak and when to remain silent, that can hold space for human complexity without becoming hardened by human deception. This archetype does not emerge from innocence, but from the successful navigation of disillusionment toward a deeper form of love. The silence of women who see through masks serves multiple functions simultaneously. It protects both the seer and the seen from premature confrontation with truth. It creates space for organic revelation rather than forced awareness. It preserves energy that would otherwise be lost in futile attempts to convince others of realities they are not ready to acknowledge. But perhaps most importantly, this silence allows for the development of inner authority. When you stop seeking external validation for your perceptions, when you cease explaining what you see to those determined not to see it, when you trust your knowing regardless of social feedback, you develop what Jung called the relationship with the self, that deeper organizing principle that exists beyond ego concerns. This relationship transforms the quality of your silence from something passive into something powerfully generative. You are not withholding truth as punishment or protection, but preserving sacred space where truth can eventually be received. Your silence becomes an offering, a demonstration that not everything needs to be spoken to be real, that some forms of knowing are too precious to be scattered indiscriminately. Women who have developed this relationship with inner knowing often find that their presence alone communicates what words cannot convey. Others sense that you see them, even when you say nothing about what you observe. They feel both exposed and strangely safe in your company, sensing that while you perceive their masks, you also recognize their essential worth beneath whatever performance they currently maintain. This quality of presence can be unsettling for those still identified with their personas, their carefully constructed social identities. They may feel judged in your company even though you offer no criticism, seen too clearly even though you respect their privacy, called to authenticity even though you make no demands. Your simple existence becomes an invitation to truth that they may not feel ready to accept. The paradox Jung identified in this dynamic is that the more clearly you see, the more responsible you become for how you use that sight. The woman who can perceive others' deepest fears and greatest potentials carries an ethical burden that those with less developed perception never face. She must learn to honor what she sees without manipulating it, to hold space for others' growth without controlling their pace, to offer truth without forcing its acceptance. This ethical dimension requires ongoing development of what Jung called the moral imagination, the ability to act from love rather than ego, even when others' unconsciousness triggers your own shadow material. When someone's mask represents exactly the qualities you have worked hard to integrate in yourself, when their performance mirrors your own past self-deceptions, when their unconscious behavior activates your own unhealed wounds, maintaining compassionate silence becomes a spiritual practice. The developed woman learns to see others' masks as information about their current developmental stage rather than character flaws. She understands that everyone is doing their best with their current level of consciousness, even when that best includes significant self-deception. She recognizes that judging others for wearing masks while you have learned to remove yours is like condemning someone for being in third grade when you have reached graduate school. This perspective allows her silence to emerge from wisdom rather than superiority, from understanding rather than judgment. She sees clearly and responds appropriately, offering truth when it can be received, holding space when direct communication would cause harm, withdrawing energy when engagement would enable unconscious patterns to continue. Jung believed that consciousness is contagious, that one person's commitment to truth creates ripples that eventually reach others ready for similar development. The woman who sees through masks while maintaining heart connection becomes a catalyst for authenticity in everyone around her, not through preaching or teaching, but simply through being. Her silence speaks volumes about the possibility of living authentically in an inauthentic world. As you recognize yourself in this exploration, as you feel the relief of having your perceptual abilities acknowledged rather than pathologized, remember that seeing clearly is both gift and responsibility. You cannot unsee what you have learned to perceive, cannot return to the comfort of unconsciousness once awareness has awakened within you, but you can learn to carry your knowledge lightly, to see with compassion rather than condemnation, to speak when speaking serves, and remain silent when silence heals. The world desperately needs women who can see through masks while loving the faces beneath them, who can recognize performance while honoring the authentic self it seeks to protect, who can hold space for truth while respecting others' timing for receiving it. Your silence is not emptiness but fullness, not withdrawal but presence, not judgment but profound acceptance of human complexity. In that silence lives a form of love that few understand but everyone recognizes when they encounter it. It is the love that sees all and condemns nothing, that recognizes the mask as protection rather than deception, that honors the journey toward authenticity even when that journey moves slowly through necessary illusions. If you have found yourself in these words, if you recognize the particular burden and blessing of clear sight, know that your silence serves a purpose beyond your individual experience. You are holding space for a form of consciousness that humanity is slowly learning to embrace, demonstrating through your presence that it is possible to see clearly and love deeply, to recognize truth and maintain compassion, to live authentically in a world still learning the courage such living requires. Your silence speaks, your seeing serves, your presence matters more than you may ever know.